I'll call this Topsham Board of Selectmen meeting to order. We are 6:30 p.m., February 18th, 2021. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Patty, would you call the roll, please?
David Douglas.
I am here.
Marie Brilliant.
She is attempting to get on, so she's still working at it.
Ruth Lyons.
You're here.
Matt Nixon. Matt Nixon. Roland.
I'm here.
Thank you. Just Marie Brilliant is absent.
Sorry, folks. Town managers report.
Good evening, everyone. Just like to report that Governor Mills signed an executive order that extended the dog licensing deadline to June 2nd due to COVID-19 impacts on animal vaccination sites. Online dog licenses will remain open until May 31st. And as a reminder to the public, we have started the fiscal year 2022 budget meetings. If you'd like to view these meetings, a link to the town's YouTube channel is available on the town's website. And our Public Works Department has an opening for a driver position. I'd like to put that out there. If anyone is interested in applying or would like to be part of the Topsham team, please visit the town's website for more information. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you. Any questions of the manager? Nope. Board committee reports and updates. An update from TDI ECD, John Shattuck, Topsham Economic and Community Development Incorporated Director.
Good evening, all, and thanks for your time.
Evening.
Just a few items tonight. First, I've been working with Planning Department, indeed under the lead of the Planning Department, to explore the possibility of utilizing our special area management plan, which you may remember from a few years back, was a pilot program to deal with an alternative method for mitigating impacts on vernal pools resulting from development. And with particular regard for the situation we have with some of our vernal pools, which are already heavily constrained or impacted because they're surrounded by development or power lines or roadways, and indeed are, as a result, not real high value resources for their intended purposes in the habitat. So this looks at a method that's more market-based, more transparent, and more predictable for developers, and yet at the same time provides an opportunity to still produce strong funding for preservation of higher value resources in areas where there isn't so much impact. So intent is to create kind of a win-win. And so we're working here to explore with a Topsham developer who's looking to create a significant residential project, which is much needed. And this will mark the first time that we've had an opportunity to use this program, the SAN, to deal with vernal pool impact. So we're hoping we can find it to be feasible and assist a worthy project with proceeding. Also with planning, with Rod and Andrew, we've been working, or at least having preliminary discussions with the Maine Department of Transportation, who's announced that they have an upcoming, upcoming schedule to repave portions of the 196 coastal connector. And so we've asked them to consider whether we can integrate, it's feasible to integrate a grade level crossing at the intersection of the connector and Village Drive and Community Drives, something that's been a goal since long before I got here, when after the Bypass North project or Highland Green was built, and those two communities and portions of the bike path have been separated by a busy road that doesn't have a crossing. And it does present some challenges, but I think everybody recognizes that just about a half a mile west of there, right on 201, on a much busier intersection at Main Street and the Coastal Connector, heavily pedestrian trafficked area with school children and high school pupils. We have an effective crossing. It's not the fastest one in the world, but it works. So we're working with MDOT to see if we can affect a similar project down at the village community intersection. And we're at very preliminary discussions, but timing is everything. And as a result of the bike ped payment made recently as part of the Highland Green 2, Phase 2 TIF, the town does have resources that would meet whatever its share might be for such a project, should that be the decision of the town to proceed. So early days yet, but so far it looks like this is something that's feasible to at least discuss and explore in more detail. And finally, just kind of an intro to something we'll get into in much more detail later in the agenda, is the consideration of timing for considering supporting an affordable housing TIF for the Topsham Housing Authority's Fairview Commons project. A significant impact affordable housing project. And the key question for Topsham Housing Authority and before the board tonight is to begin consideration on whether or not this is something you wish to bring forward to the town meeting. And if so, is it something that we could do at the regular spring town meeting this year, or possibly a special meeting in the fall, just to get this project moving forward without losing a full year, which they've already lost to last year when they would have been bringing this to you. But I think, as we all know, last year was a little challenging. So have some more detail for you on that later in the agenda.
John, this vernal pool, was that where we were, the pilot program with the town of Orono?
Yep.
Yeah.
There was at least one other town at one point, Falmouth was considering, but it ended up being only us and Orono. And if I recall correctly, and I'll stand corrected if Rod or Andrew care to chime in, but I believe when we last discussed this a couple of weeks ago that Orono had not yet brought forth a project. So if this proves feasible for this project, I believe we'll be the first test case for making this work. And if it works, it really is structured, or it was, the intent was to structure this in a way that's win-win for providing resources for protecting viable natural habitat and giving developers a more easily predictable and transparent way to go ahead with a project without worrying about what the mitigation fee was going to be down the road.
So the way it's set up now, it's only us in Orono that can utilize this?
At present, yeah.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Any questions of John? Oh, seeing nothing. Thank you, John. All right, we are to the correspondence portion of the evening. If you have any comments, questions on the agenda topic, email, or you can call in 373-5090 if you just have general comments. This is our portion of the meeting where we just take general public comments. Doesn't have to be about any item on the agenda. We did receive, I know we all received one letter this evening from the Conservation Commission, but as I've usually done, I would like to hold that until the subject matter is up, so it's more prevalent to read it at that time. Did anyone else have any other letters or correspondence this week? Nothing. So no one has an issue, I take it, with the Conservation's letter going with that, the agenda item. Okay. All right, so 373-5090 is the phone number if you want to call in. I'm watching the lines, but as we watch that, we'll take care of some of the housekeeping issues. Look to approve the minutes of the regular Selectmen meeting from February 4th, 2021. And I'll make that as a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motioned and seconded. All those in favor? Unanimous. Again, phone number is 373-5090. Give it a couple more minutes before we move on, a minute or two.
Hey Dave, while we're waiting, Ruth and I had the Budget Advisory Committee, or our first one for the Saginaw County Budget Advisory Committee today, our first meeting.
Yep.
It was more or less introductory, but we did talk about a few things that may be coming up in the budget upcoming. If you want to have a report out on that at some point, just an update.
Yeah, then we should, when you guys definitely get a minute to,
Right.
after you've heard things, come back. Certainly, let's put it in.
March 12th is our big one.
The communications issue, I'm sure, is the big one. All right, I'm seeing no phone calls. There's never phone calls. So we're going to move on. Item 21-06, consideration any appropriate action on selecting a date for referendum on forming a charter commission to be submitted to the town of Topsham voters. We have a memo from the assistant town manager, and he has lit himself up on the screen. So I am sure he is ready to go.
Good evening, everyone. So as you know, on February 4th, you said you wanted to submit to the voters of Topsham the question of whether or not they would like to establish a charter. So you have 30 days from that date to pick a date for your election or referendum on that issue. The date you pick has to be at least 90 days after the date that you set it. We've threw out a couple suggested dates to minimize cost. We're going to be having an election anyway on June 8th and one on November 2nd. So you might want to choose one of those two. And the other thing for you to take or consider is 6 members of the commission, if it was approved, are going to be voted on. And you have to take out papers for that, similar to the way you would for a select
Right.
board position. But you are allowed to do both at the same time if you wanted. So you could theoretically say both in June, you'd vote on the commission and elect the members if it were approved. But you might decide you'd rather have the referendum first, because some people may not want to take out papers until they know for sure there's actually going to be a commission. So those are decisions to make tonight. At the bottom of the memo are some proposed motions. If you decide just to set the date for the referendum on the shall there be a charter commission, you only need the first motion.
Anyone want to chime in with thoughts?
I like the idea of putting the charter commission on the June meeting. And then if there's an election, it'll be with the other people that's elected on November 2nd.
Yeah, Mark, I think that makes a lot of sense, what you proposed. Thank you for putting that work into it. Good stuff. Concise.
You're welcome.
Someone want to read the
Support that
motion?
approach as well.
Okay. Any other comment? Nope. Anyone want to read the motion? Make it.
I'll do
Shall I
it.
give it? Go ahead, Roland.
There you go. All right, I make a motion that we vote, we set the date of, what is it, June
8.
8th for the referendum on the forming of a charter commission, which will be submitted to the town of Topsham voters.
Second that.
Shall a charter commission be established for the purpose of establishing a municipal charter? Okay. Does that work, Mark?
Yes, although you might want to actually, the part that you added at the end, because the statute requires you actually have specific language on the ballot.
Okay. Well, how about, Roland, if you want to read, I'll read this directly
Okay.
off his suggestion. That way we know we're right. You want to
Perfect.
retract those. Ruth, you're good if he retracts it? You did
Right.
second it. Okay.
Yep.
So this should be the motion, I guess. To order the town clerk to submit the following question to the voters of the town of Topsham on June 8th. Shall a charter commission be established for the purpose of establishing a new municipal charter? Now we need a second.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Well, I have a question. The way that read, a new charter, I think it should be just charter, but maybe not. To
I
form a
agreed.
charter.
Ruth, I would have agreed with you, but the statute actually expects you to
Okay.
use the word new, so that's why it's in there. You're
Of
right, it would
course.
make more sense otherwise. but-
Yeah. Thank you.
Patty, this is your moment to shine. Would you take the roll, please?
I will. David Douglas, are you in favor or opposed?
Out of this, I'm in favor.
In favor. Marie Brilliant,
In favor?
Ruth Lyons,
In favor.
Matt Nixon,
In favor?
and Roland Tuss.
In favor.
Voted unanimously in favor.
Thank you, Patty. Appreciate it. Item 21-10, consideration any appropriate action on adopting a resolution to support recycling reform for Maine. We received a letter in January earlier this, I think it was like January 1st, referenced it on our meeting January 7th from Yvette Meunier to even more specific, I'm sorry, trying to find the more specific wording. About EPR for packaging, how EPR for packaging would save towns money, and a possibility of joining a, what's the word? I'm sorry, I got so many pages in front of me. I apologize. Should have just let Yvette go. To
Pass the resolution.
there we go. Thank you, Yvette. Should have just given it to you right off, which is what's in my head. So Yvette, you want to open up?
All right, I guess I'll go. Thank you all for having me tonight. I'm excited to bring this forward to the community and to you, select board members. As you know, the recycling landscape has been changing and changing in the wrong direction. DEP's January 2021 report to the legislature indicated that residential recycling rates have decreased 30% between 2018 and 2019. And we also know that the town of Topsham has had an increase of 300% in costs of handling recyclables. And so now recycling is actually more expensive than handling trash. And I'm sure that many of you have also experienced the dwindling amount of materials that are being processed and accepted now at the transfer station. However, support for recycling is still evident in our community. Some examples of this include the fact that during the 2019 budget discussion at the Topsham board, decided to not stop recycling and instead increase the budget by $40,000. And also during the 2019 neighborhood meetings, 3 of the 4 neighborhoods surveyed brought up the topic of waste management and praised the staff and the services of the transfer station. So the question is, what decision are you going to make when the budget comes around again? Will you keep increasing our taxes while providing less services? That's really inevitable because there won't be, there's nothing done. But tonight you have a choice, and this choice is one that bears no financial burden and no binding obligation. Tonight you can choose to voice your support in seeking change to this broken recycling system. And tonight I'm asking you to approve a resolution to support extended producer responsibility in Maine. Extended producer responsibility, or EPR, is nothing new. It's nothing untested. It's been in Germany since 1991. It's been in British Columbia for the last 8 years, spread across Canada, and it's on all 6 continents. We actually have several EPR adjacent programs already in Maine, including Paint Care, which we just joined. And I'm very happy to see that we have had an expansion in our recycling programs without increasing our budget. And also the bottle bill is another example. So in moving forward, what incentives do manufacturers really have to relieve the burden on taxpayers if they have no responsibility for the product. EPR is an opportunity to bring those producers to the table, and without them there, we can't solve this problem. EPR creates an incentive for manufacturers to create more recyclable packaging while reimbursing towns who choose to participate for some of the burden on the taxpayers. And I'm not alone tonight when I ask you for supporting this recycling reform. I'm joined by 145 other Topsham residents who have signed the Natural Resources Council of Maine. That's 19 more people than showed up at 2020's town meeting. I'm going to share a few quotes from their testimony. Someone says, I feel somewhat betrayed when I go to the recycling center and being told they don't accept certain types of plastic that are clearly marked as recyclable. I don't blame the employees. I understand there is no market for certain recyclables, but I do blame the packaging industry for making containers that they claim are recyclable but are clearly not marketable. They at the point of sale and make suppliers responsible for buying back their output. Somebody else. This is a major issue involving the producers of waste, and the solution is important. Another one. I am saddened by all the unrecyclable waste I need to throw in the trash lately. The transfer station doesn't take many of the plastics and small styrofoam like they used to. I would love to see more biodegradable and recyclable packaging coming out of our local businesses, especially supermarkets. One more. As a recycler, I spent 30 years working with all the areas of the food industry, beginning to end. Extended producer responsibility is the first initiative that I have seen that will disrupt the folly that we call recycling. Only the first two R's make any difference at all: reduce and reuse. And the list goes on. So this gesture really is a show of good faith to residents that Topsham is looking out for their best interests to lower taxes and keep recycling financially sustainable. Hoping to join the Maine Municipal Association and 20 other municipalities in showing support for this type of legislation and relieve taxpayers of this burden. I urge you to pass this resolution tonight.
Thank you, Yvette. Also tonight, as I said earlier in our communication portion, we got a letter. Dear Topsham Select Board, the Topsham Conservation Commission would like to express our support for extended producer responsibility as a way to reduce the burden on taxpayers of dealing with single-use packaging. There are very few ways for consumers to reduce the single-use packaging in our daily lives. Even bulk products are shipped to the store in non-reusable packaging. EPR provides the incentives for producers to help find a solution. The Conservation Commission urges the Select Board to pass a resolution in support of EPR legislation. Sincerely, Victor Langelo, Chair, Steve Pelletier, Raya Suamala, and Shanna Stewart Deeds. So we do have that, along with Yvette had read several comments tonight. Does anyone have any questions, Marie? Or
did you, Yvette, say that there was 20 other communities in the state of Maine signed up for this?
20 other communities signed up for supporting the resolution. And Maine Municipal Association, I think Yvette said. Roland, I saw you.
Oh, so that
Yeah,
she
we really
did
don't
say
have any
that.
questions.
Sorry, Marie. Actually, Roland, I think Marie's still going. We're
Oh, okay, no problem.
on a little lag here. You're good? All right. We'll go to Roland. I think there's a technical lag going on.
That way I won't lip sync, then I'll really speak. So here we go. I haven't had any questions. I think this is a great idea, and I think it's a good step. And as Yvette mentioned, I think, it shows that we are, as a town, we are thinking forward and trying to do a progressive type of step relative to recognizing this not sustainable, and we really have to take action. And no time and better than the present, in my opinion.
Ruth, your hand went. Sarah, I do see you there. I'm going to get you.
No, I didn't, but I will. My questions are, there was supposed to be an LD to support this. I have not seen that, and I really wanted to read it and view it before I made a decision, the legislative document. And the other thing, I support all the work that's done on environment and recycling and all. I do have a question. We say, Yvette, if we do this and there is a savings on taxes, does that mean our food will go up because of the packaging or non-packaging? So we might save on taxes, but we might, and truthfully, I hate the stuff that's in our meat and stuff anyway, so.
Great question. First, I just want to discuss the LD. Yes, draft language that I sent you does have an LD reference to it. And by no means do we even need to reference any bill at all. In fact, this would be best as just a general statement, understanding and acknowledging that the system's broken, that we do think that EPR is a solution. And this is really just asking or showing support that we bring this forward. So I would, when discussing the language, if you were to remove any reference to that at all, it doesn't need to be in there whatsoever. No, it has not shown that prices will increase in food.
Thank you. Sarah Nichols is also joining us from Sustainable Maine. Your title's partially cut off. I see director, I'm assuming. Yeah, there it is. Now
okay. All right. Yes. Thank you so much for including me in the meeting tonight. So my name is Sarah Nichols. I'm the Sustainable Maine Director for the Natural Resources Council of Maine. And I'm just here to help answer questions and encourage you to support the resolution as well. We're really, our organization is really the one behind advocating for this policy. And we had come up with this resolution process as a vehicle to help towns kind of know that help was on the way and that there was a way for them to support it, because we're having a lot of people in our, a lot of our activists in our network are wanting ways to help. And we're like, all right, if we can help educate the select boards, the decision makers in your town, so when it comes time for a bill to comment on a bill, they'll have already kind of known that it's coming and kind of understand it. So the other towns, I'm happy to read the list. I have it right in front of me if you want to know which towns have signed the resolution. And on our website, we have links to all of them, and none of them refer to an LD number. And I'm glad that we did it that way. So just a little tiny bit of history. This has been a long time coming. We had in the previous legislature, we passed a resolve bill that directed the Department of Environmental Protection to draft legislation for this extended producer responsibility program. They did that last December. There was a bill called LD 1431 that had an 8-hour public hearing. 70% of the testifiers were in support. All of that testimony is online. Unfortunately, and the committee, the Environment Natural Resources Committee, actually did vote to move forward with that legislation. Majority ought to pass, but then COVID shut everything down, and none of the bills that weren't voted on came back, which was sad. So we would have had it. So what's happened is we've taken the language that was passed out of committee, which I'm happy to share with you. I don't know if it exists online. I can send an email to the board. If you'd like to see it, is made some adjustments to that language. It's very much the same. Everything that has to do with municipalities is the exact same there. And it's been resubmitted under Representative Grahowski of Ellsworth. And it's just going through the revisor's office now, and it hasn't been officially printed. But I'm very intimate with that language, and I'm happy to answer any questions about it that you might have. But unfortunately, it's just not printed yet for your viewing.
Ruth?
I have one more question. This resolution, is this to take support and put pressure on our legislators? from the board? Is that why the board is being asked to do this?
Yeah, I guess it's multiple reasons. It's what, Yvette had mentioned, that it's showing your residents in Topsham that you are acknowledged as a problem, and that that the CPR for packaging is the solution. But yes, it's also when all of our state legislators have so many things to think about and consider, we can actually show them, hey, one of your towns signed this resolution, and it helps them know that people in their district support it. So we did attach all of the resolutions that we got last year to our testimony and deliver those to the legislature so that they could see what towns had signed it. And again, like, I'm glad we didn't refer to an LD, knowing that we might not have passed it the first time, which is what happened. So it's still, on the record that they support the concept. And the other thing about it too is you could really word the resolution in any way that you want. It doesn't have to be what NRCM has suggested or whatever, anything that exists. It's whatever you're comfortable with, really.
Ms. Nichols, just real quick, you've said now that all of the letters from the towns don't reference the LD, but I'm looking at all of them right now on the website, and they all do reference LD 1431. Everything on your website right now, I just went through all the letters, and they all reference LD 1431.
Oh, that one does, yeah. Oh, well.
So
maybe not
if I,
sorry, yeah. Sorry, I was misspoke, but I wasn't aware that all of them did. The language that we suggested to them didn't, so the town must have amended it in a way that did include it.
So Dave, if I could, I've got some thoughts on this. I think most of this has been covered tonight, so I'm going to try and abbreviate some of my initial thoughts. And Sarah, thank you for answering that question. So plastic trash in any form, marine debris in particular, for me, it's a silent killer. It's not super splashy, it's not always evident, and it's been around for a while, which makes us sort of immune to it, kind of like a telephone pole. This bill, or at least LD 1431, which was the bill from the previous session, which is now dead and no longer exists, this bill was super important to me, and I'll tell you why. I have a 4-year-old daughter, and she watches YouTube because of COVID. I hate it, but she loves watching videos of other little girls open these toys called LOL dolls. And they're essentially mold-injected polyethylene dolls that are like this big. All the dolls, or plus all their little accoutrements, like their purse and their shoes and everything. And so the kicker is that each of these things is individually wrapped in a piece of plastic that costs pennies to make and distribute individually. And then, of course, unwrapping everything adds to the fun. And, of course, the waste. So ultimately, our waste disposal and recycling fees jack up because of this. This is just one tiny example of packaging excess that is happening in millions of households on a daily basis. Demand is clearly a factor. Kids like opening things or like presents, but parents are responsible for what their kids buy, and plastic toy manufacturers should be socially responsible for the literal mess they are largely responsible for making. I didn't fault LD 1431 all that much from what I read of it. I'm also not an expert though. So I read former Commissioner Reed of the Maine Department of Environmental Protection, his testimony from January 8th, 2020 of last session, right before COVID completely destroyed the legislature, pretty much. He's much more of an expert. He's been around Maine environmental and regulatory environment for a very long time. His testimony pointed to two things that sort of still make me pause about voting for something to support EPR in Maine without knowing answers to these questions. And again, that can simply be resolved by looking at the legislation as soon as it's available. But these questions were structural. And, I always blab about how I worked for the state for a long time. I mean, these issues resonate with me because I understand what he's saying. And I'll read some of these. What happens if and when the organization that's selected to run this EPR program is not functioning properly? That's the fundamental question. What's the state's recourse? How will that recourse ensure the ongoing viability of the program? Who or what will step into the shoes of the organization if that becomes necessary? Using what resources and staffing? What happens to the requirements that apply to the regulated community in the interim? I could go on here, but there were a lot of concerns about the state's ability, and I understand this is happening in other countries and other states. Maine has a population of 1.2 million.
It's smaller than most large cities. We don't have the capacity at the state level that a lot of states do, like Massachusetts, for instance. So when I listen to a commissioner at an environmental agency, especially from this administration, say that there are concerns with the structure of how this bill was initially worded, I'm going to listen to him. I don't think that the questions that former Commissioner Reed.
You're good.
Hey, am I still unstable?
Yeah.
Hey, there we go. All right, cool. I don't think the questions that questions that Commissioner Reed posed are really difficult to figure out. I think a really prime example of a similar relationship is what the state currently has with InformMe. InformMe is an IT vendor that runs the state's websites and some web portals. It's a really complicated relationship, and Lord, I hated working with InformMe because they were such a pain in the butt and they were expensive. But it's a relationship that does work. So I can totally see an organization that's selected by the DEP to run the CPR program working in a similar fashion. So I guess my point is it's not an insurmountable issue. My issue is I still haven't seen how it's going to be solved. And I am a huge fan of reading the contract before I sign it. I understand that this is about concepts and principles of EPR, but based on Commissioner Reed's testimony, the concepts and principles of EPR in Maine were difficult to wrap his head around I guess it would have been about a year ago now. And I know and expect that those issues that he brought up are going to be in this new bill. Well, I don't know, but I fully expect that they will be. And I very much look forward to reading it. But before I can sign off on any resolution talking about EPR working in Maine, I need to look at the bill. And that's where I stand.
And that was my concern, because I absolutely agree with Matt on that. However, having said that, it's puts me in a quandary, because I believe in 100% of good recycling and good quality food, and our food is not put in junk plastic and other things, like Matt said, for children. And this packaging is ridiculous. Sometimes I wish we could go back to, you go in the store and you'd buy the bulk meat, and you'd pump your own vinegar, or you'd buy a single pickle and you'd have your own basket, and you would do this and not all this packaging. But that's not going to happen. So, but I am with Matt. I can't sign it until I read the information. And as a board member, I can't. And I know 145 people signed it, and I'm with those 145 people, but there's still, I think we have to know as board, be responsible what's in that bill.
I'd like to interject if I could, please.
Sure.
Thanks. We are not taking action on any particular bill at all. What we are specifically would like to see something come forward that everybody will be negotiating on later on. EPR already exists in Maine. The bottle bill has been around longer than I have. So EPR is a process that does exist. It does work. We're expanding that with paint care, batteries, mattresses, carpet. This isn't something new and untested. So honestly, this is not really what's on the table, discussing a bill. It's discussing the fact that we know recycling's broken and we want something to change.
I don't think you have
So I'm not here to debate the ideas that will eventually come out. I'm just here to ask that Topsham make a statement that they support something new to come across to help the taxpayers here. This isn't about whatever may or may not happen in a bill that's going to get tossed around a million times over. I actually ran the bottle bill program. I think I'm just as knowledgeable as Mr. Reed is on how this stuff works.
And why did Mr. Reed have issues with it? Can you explain?
Ken?
Hold on, Sarah.
Yeah, I'd like Sarah to interject if she would like
I will
to.
in a second. Selectman Nixon asked you a question. You bet.
Yeah, and Sarah has a better answer than I do on that.
Sarah?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. So the remarks that Commissioner Reed submitted, he was a wonderful commissioner. He's no longer commissioner, but he submitted those comments when they introduced the bill that DEP wrote to the committee, because he wants to cross all his T's and dot all his I's as well, like you said. So Those were his concerns when they originally drafted it. I think you'll find at the, when you go look at the comments from the DEP at the public hearing for the bill, they submitted an amendment to the bill, and in their comments said, we've found solution, we've amended this in a way that we're really more comfortable with now. And then the bill, of course, one got amended more and more and more and then got voted out. But the DEP was very supportive of that whole process. And I hope that they're supportive of the next bill that comes out too, because the structure of it really is to help protect the DEP. It gives them the control that they want over the program. Some of their concern was really more about giving the producers too much control. There's a lot of details to get into there, but that's kind of what happened there.
Thanks, Sarah. That's actually helpful.
Oh, go ahead, Matt. Go.
I was just going to say, I mean, from sounds of it, I mean, I'm not opposed to EPR. I'm certainly not opposed to the bill 1431, as I mentioned. I am still concerned about just looking at the text. I put a lot of stock in what the former commissioner said. I will have to look at that amended text. I don't think that's really an issue, though. I think really what we need to do is wait a week or two until the bill comes out. I mean, it's really not a big deal. I mean, once a bill gets released from the revisor's office, it gets scheduled for a public hearing, and within a week, you've got 2 weeks to show up. You've got a work session after that, and then if it gets passed out of committee, it gets kicked out to the full legislature for a vote. So there are at least 3 opportunities within that time span for any type of resolution that comes from Topsham to be provided into the forum for debate, to basically make a difference. And until, I mean, so I guess what I'm saying is here, I don't really see an issue. I mean, I think if we wait a couple of weeks until something is imminent, as Ms. Nichols offered earlier, I don't really see a problem here. I mean, we could probably vote on, well, we don't really need to vote on anything today. I don't know, Dave. You were going to say something. I'm kind of rambling.
I've been going around the room. I'll say something. I think Roland summed up right in the beginning in Roland's initial email when this came to us, is, and I think we all accept it's a good, and I don't want to use the word theory, it's a good
Gesture.
the gesture, but I'm just saying, I think the bill is good and it's needed, whatever it looks like eventually, not whatever it looks like, believe me, because I am 100% on board with having to read it. More of the questions I have tonight are from my understanding of what the bill may look like. So I don't want to take out of the resolution, but I'm at least going to comment on it. I'm for this because I believe there is a packaging issue, and everything Yvette said about the recycling, it all exists. 100% correct. I guess some of the things I've heard that just drive me nuts when we do this is we dip our toe, we don't go all the way. We carve out main businesses, don't have to live up to this, right? Either we're against it or not. I don't understand why that stuff happens. I don't support this growing trend of strictly blaming big businesses, because big businesses started small somewhere, right? And if we don't do something, so I don't like the idea of carving anybody out. And Yvette, I think 30 nations around the world, 8 provinces have it. And I know, what did I see? 8 or 10 states are doing this same thing individually this year, I believe is the hope. Why are we rewriting what's already working elsewhere? So these are questions I have.
I know what you're saying there. Rewriting what's working elsewhere.
There's so many examples of this working, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Why is Maine coming up with its own function of it? Why wouldn't we adopt what someone else had?
Well, we're working on that right now by getting this bill together. From what I understand, I think that DEP was looking a lot at the British Columbia
Quebec
process. Quebec. I I still just kind of want to bring the focus back to the actual document in front of us tonight. We don't even need to include an LD number whatsoever. If you actually just read through the language, the whereas, and more effective, more sustainable, more equitable, it's really just a statement of facts of the situation at large. It really is not anything that is binded to any particular LD number, and it's really just to show support that we do want to have them at the table. We want to find a new way forward. We want to see something that we don't, if we don't come and support this, there will be nothing to debate on.
This will go with or without our support. You bet. That's not a fair statement that if we don't do this, it's dead.
I'm just saying that this will help. I can't say that it will or won't happen. Nobody can, but we have an option right here tonight to show the will of the residents that we do care about trying to find something more sustainable that could, if we choose, we don't have to, it's non-binding, to join potentially this system if it does pass and gets through the committee.
I mean, I certainly will not support anything that states an LD in it as what's in front of us, what was part of our packet. So I wouldn't do that. If there's a general statement that the board makes that we are.
And I've suggested taking out the LD.
And if there is a general statement the board could make that we are in support of the discovery of an EPR law or something, that's fine. I mean, I'm with Matt. It's this isn't, I mean, we just want to see what we're talking about. Everyone here that has spoken tonight is in support of this, right? But before we put forward anything, we just want to see.
Was it a question that cut out?
No, I didn't ask a question. I'm making a statement. We just want to see what we are supporting. If somebody stops me on the street, stops me at Hannaford and says, you voted to endorse X, what does that mean?
This is a declaration of what's going on. It's not a declaration of support for a particular bill. And the definition of extended producer responsibility is not really something that's controversial. It's a way of taking care of people's stuff. I mean, it's paint care, it's the bottle bill.
All right.
Is it absolutely necessary that this be passed tonight? Like, what can we meet in 2 weeks when this is released by our advisor's office, I'm assuming, to just move it at that point? I mean,
I've brought this forward over the past 2 months, and I'm here tonight with some language in front of us that I hope that we could debate a little bit about, and just removing the LD. Maybe it could be a workshop to discuss what you'd like to do. I mean, if this, I would like to see something, a motion tonight that we workshop this language. Again, not in support of any particular bill, just reading the facts of we also agree that this is broken. We're going to do something about it. And I think David was kind of alluding to a very generalized statement along those lines.
Yeah, because that's probably the extent we're gonna get from me. I'm not a big believer in here's this piece of paper, my support strong, this paper means anything. Action means something, right? And signing to a piece of paper is an action in my eyes, in reality. I think we're at a point now that we as a board need to discuss. We've had all the information in front of us. We need to make a decision on how we want to move forward with it. Do we want to, the ideas I've heard, Roland, I think you would chimed in saying that it seemed like a good way. Several of us want to see and wait for something to come forward. I think we need to make a decision. Does the board agree with that?
Dave, I'm sorry, you cut out, two words cut out of your last sentence for me, and I don't know what you actually said.
I believe we need to make a decision as a board. We've had different thoughts. Roland, I think, started saying that it shows that we are supportive and we're looking for something, you didn't use revolutionary, but revolutionary. And then there's been also discussion of, can't we wait and will support? So I think we need to make that decision now. Nothing new is coming about. Does the board agree? Those were 2 words I did use, 3 words.
I don't see any harm in putting this off a couple of weeks, as Matt suggested, until there's something more concrete coming out of the legislature. I do, at the same time, I do think this is more of a statement of support on a more global basis, and not specifically addressing any particular legislation that may be coming down the road. So are we in favor of the spirit behind, this initiative? So, but I think, that can be part of a larger debate, maybe in a workshop, like Yvette mentioned.
Well, I think, Roland, you hit it there. I mean, in the spirit of the conversation, we are in support of, or however the wording you use. I mean, if we were going to come out of any vote tonight, that's where I could throw support. In general, big picture, we are in support of the spirit of an EPR law.
Can I get it in writing?
Well, Yvette, that's, and I'll be honest, that's the stuff that worries me when people look for us to make a decision that they're going to hold it up and tout it the second we don't agree with something a little bit down the road. So that's what really worries me a little bit, is either we're going to come out of this in someone's doghouse, or we're going to come out eventually, we didn't support every single thing one individual wanted, and we're going to be the bad guy.
No, this is 145 other people want this too.
So,
Well, can I say one more thing? We haven't
yeah,
made a
this is
motion.
we're discussing now.
Well, the other thing is, I agree, 145 people, and I think there's more that support recycling and quality recycling. But I haven't seen that. There's 8,000, 9,000 people in Topsham. And I know people don't like it because they think it's politics, but this board has to represent as many people as possible. And maybe we'll hear from some of them as of tonight that, hey, you guys get behind what she's doing or whatever. But 145 people is very, very important. They're taxpayers in this town and they're good people. And like I said, I'm for it, but I want to see a little bit more. And I thank the work that's been done. Thank you for that.
Hey, Dave, I forgot to add something. When we received the request to consider the resolution, I contacted Representative Nicole Grahowski via email, and then had a phone call with her the following day for about an hour. And it was an amazing phone call. She's incredibly intelligent and super nice. And immediately called me back and talked about a lot of stuff. But we talked about this too. She's the sponsoring individual for the new bill that's coming out this session. And she didn't express a ton of haste. She was understanding that we wanted to look at the text first. And she also suggested sending out a letter to the editor, or having a conversation like this with the board, just to make folks more aware of the issue. So we're certainly doing that right now, which is good. But I didn't get the sense of urgency from the individual who was actually sponsoring this bill, that we needed to do something immediately. So again, I'm going to push where I'm land right now is I'd like to table this for 2 weeks. And then we bring it up at the next board meeting where we discuss, or not even discuss, yeah, Dave, what you're saying, we need to make a decision now to support. We'll table it for 2 weeks. And then, or were you going to say, Dave?
I was just going to say, you table it until it comes out. If it comes out in 3 weeks or whatever it be.
Right.
As soon as we have it in front of us, we're ready to go. So Ruth, I mean, sorry, Marie.
Dave?
Oh, go ahead, Marie. Yep.
Do I understand this correctly, that you just want us to do, would like to set up a workshop? Yvette?
Whatever it is to, yeah, I think that that would be great.
So if we can just, go ahead,
I was just gonna say, I feel like tonight turned into a workshop,
Sarah.
honestly.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know about the timing of getting back on this agenda because it takes many weeks. And then to have this signed off on and then to be part of somebody's testimony. And then also, I mean, mentioned that you're representing a lot of people. I think all these people are taxpayers and they want to reduce their tax burden, and that they're all, you know, happy to have recycling in town. I just don't see how this is. I mean, 145 people is a lot of people, more than town meeting. So you've gotten more feedback on this than you have on anything else you've brought forward besides going to election and voting for people. Again, I really not need to support a specific bill by any means. If you read through the language besides the paragraph with the LD, it's really just stating facts about how we understand that this system is broken, which we've all really reiterated tonight. We understand that the system's broken and we do want change, and we want to bring people to the table that can help bring, you know, change to the system. I would support just writing this up without the LD paragraph.
So Matt, was your words a motion, or I'm looking for a motion at this point?
Don't put words in my mouth, Dave.
No, I asked. I asked.
Yeah,
It was
I'm just
worthy.
joking with you. Yeah, I think
If
it
it
could be.
wasn't-
I move, no, I was just joking with you. I move that we table this discussion until such time as the LD becomes available through the legislature, through the revisor's office, and that we ensure that Derek and or Mark keep an eye on this in particular, so that way we can get it on the agenda without needing to be reminded by folks watching the revisor's office for the release of legislative items. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Can I
Cool.
We have a motion. Do we have a
ask
second?
a clarifying question about how long it will take from?
Wait, what?
I don't know. Did it freeze?
Yeah.
Could I just ask a clarifying question about timing of actually supplying testimony? My point of tonight was to ensure that our voices would be heard when this is brought up. If there's no possibility of the timing between you getting the bill and then coming to a meeting and writing this up and agreeing to all of this, if it can't make the timeline, then basically all this is moot. So I just wanted to know if Sarah or Matt want to clarify exactly how long. We actually have 3 weeks between the release of a bill and this to actually be processed through your Board of Selectmen process.
Well, I think when a bill comes out of the revisor's office, it's up to the committee chairs to schedule a public hearing for it, and that's usually a week in advance. Then you have a lot of public testimony, typically either submitted written or orally. Then, so that opportunity for public discourse ends. Then you have a work session that's usually scheduled, what, a week later? I mean, this is all somewhat subjective based on the availability of committee members and stuff.
But when is testimony?
I mean, there's
due from the date of the bill release? 10 days? Because that's what I heard.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I would be surprised if the bill was printed in the next 3 weeks, basically, is the first point I wanted to make. I mean, hopefully it does, but the first draft hasn't been returned to Representative Grahowski, and then there's a 5-day window to make some changes, and then it goes back and get fixed again. I just can't picture that really happening. Maybe, but, and then, yeah, the committee chairs will have the power to select when the public hearing is, maybe April, who knows. But what I had, I think that a really powerful way for the board to show support for what the bill when it is printed is to actually provide testimony to the committee. You could go to the hearing and provide your feedback and any changes you want to see or whatever it is at that time. And I'm happy to talk through the bill with you at that time too. So I understand everybody's hesitation for the resolution, but the resolution is really just to show an endorsement of the concept. But if you really wanted to show support for the bill, the testimony is the way to do that. So it's another opportunity that you could take on at that time.
So you don't know how many days it will be between the bill being released when testimony's due?
They usually do 20 notice, unless it's like the end of the session and things are kind of nuts. But I think for a bill like this, they would provide at least 2 weeks notice.
So if it's 2 weeks, I mean, we need to get on the agenda and you guys need to have a, I just don't know about the timing here. That's all. If it becomes an emergency meeting declared, if that's what you guys would agree to, so we do have the time to do this.
I don't want to belabor this point here, but so let's say, Sarah, it gets released in 3 weeks, right, from the revisor's office, what you just said. That brings us to the 5th of March. We wouldn't have a public hearing until April, most likely. So that still gives you 4 weeks from when it releases until when a public hearing, first of 3 different opportunities to weigh in on this bill, is scheduled. So I think there's a lot of time before that first opportunity, and then there's a work session, and then it goes out to the legislature if it's voted out of committee. So there's 3 opportunities, and there's ample time between now and the first opportunity for us to put our heads together, read that information, and get out a good resolution supporting the initiative.
We definitely need to have this before they go into workshop. That's not really, it's not going to get to workshop. This needs to be testimony that can be supplied between the initial release of the bill and the first calling of testimony.
Yep.
That's how we've been using the resolutions, is to say, it helps the more towns that this many towns representing this many people are in favor of shifting the responsibility more to the producers. Like that's pretty much, that's the purpose, except for, like I said, this is a vehicle to help let you all know that this is happening. And it does help in that way. So if like say we're an advocacy organization, if we were to talk to legislators that represent your town, that we could say Topsham, we talked to the Topsham Select Board. They support this concept. They haven't supported the bill yet, but yeah. So that's really the purpose of the resolution.
So Matt, you made a motion. We hadn't even got to the second. So I'm going to shut off all other public comment at this point. We're going to make a decision. Listening to Sarah's last statement there, before we, the proposal which I support, Ruth supports, you support, is if we were to chime in on the bill, we want to see it and read it. Sarah at the last moment said she's looking for, it helps even that she can say that to a committee, that a community of 9,000 people supports the concept of. So you've made a motion, and I agree with that 100% for the bill portion. I won't sign off until I can read anything. I have no problem with just the simple words, not a full page resolution. The town of Topsham supports the concept of EPR packaging, a EPR packaging law. So I'd throw that out before you get a second, and I'd throw it out to the group.
I agree. That was my intent all along, was to basically make this an expression of support.
It's to get Matt's daughter off of YouTube.
That too.
So my big hangups with expressing support for EPR in concept were Commissioner Reed's concerns about structural issues in the state being able to pull this off, and what happens if, for some reason, the provider that's selected through an RFP process can't perform what they're supposed to do. That means that DEP would have to step in and, basically staff up and, decrease our revenue sharing and all that good stuff. I mean, that's what happens. I guess my point is, if there is indeed an amendment to that testimony, which I haven't seen, and I would be happy to take a look at, and if it does say that we're okay with all of those issues that we pointed out in that previous testimony, I would have no issues with that resolution, but I'd have to take it on faith that that's what that amendment says, because I don't have it in front of me right now. That's my hang up.
Understood. So we have a motion to table this. Was there any other feedback? So you got Roland and I said something, Matt said something, Ruth, Marie. We've got two ideas here. Tabling all together, or a statement of supporting the concept.
In the spirit of EPR.
In the
I
spirit.
think
And
stating
I think
that
that wording changes it a little bit.
I just support Matt's, what he said. I mean, tabling it for now. But again, I think the work that's been done and the people that do support it, and a lot of support recycling, I do. And I don't want to see any cherry picking on this store can, this store can't, and things like that. That's why I want to see the bill. So, but I'm in favor. I second Matt's motion, and
All right, so we have a motion and a second.
can't we do both? Can't we do both?
We can do
Support
whatever.
it and table it? I mean, they're just
Well,
asking for support.
If we took a vote, Marie, on the statement in spirit of EPR, that would end this agenda item. No need for a tabling, because then the next time it would be actual review of the bill. If we wanted to provide any support for that, or if we didn't want to support it. So I think, yeah, I don't know how we would do both of them. I think it's one or the other. Mike, does anyone see different on that from the board? It's one or the other.
It seems kind of productive to do both at the same time. I mean,
Yep. Matt, so we've got a motion and a second, so now we'll have more discussion. Matt, and I agree with you on Commissioner Reed's. He had some, we've talked a little bit about it. All of his concerns he felt were something that could be overcome, I think, is the statement he had made in there. And we haven't seen the updated testimony. Is your concern with the statement that, how do I put this? Is your concern if we just made an in spirit statement, looking at his testimony, is it still throws support behind something that had a lot of issues? And I'm trying to, yeah.
That's exactly it, Dave. That's exactly it. I'm actually impressed that you understood what the heck I was trying to say, because I didn't understand what I was trying to say either. But yes, that's exactly it. But I mean, again, if there is an amendment out there, and I'm sure that there is, and if it does say that, and like you said, in his testimony, he did say that these were surmountable issues. They just needed additional thought. And that's, again, like what I hope will be in this new bill. This is not about a bill. It's about a concept that the commissioner of the Department of Environmental Protection originally had problems with in terms of structural context with the state of Maine actually being able to execute it. So, I mean, the legislature gives mandates to state agencies all the time with zero funding and zero resources. So this is not another one of those situations I want to see where there's a great idea and all of a sudden something happens that wasn't foreseen and the agency suddenly has to. I think Durigo is a great example of something that wasn't really planned for, and then had major issues down the line. So I guess with all that said, if there is an amendment out there, I will certainly take a look for it this evening, but I will take it on faith that what it says is that we're happy as DEP that these structural issues are no longer an impediment. So to solve the issue and to move on to the next agenda item, I would be happy to retract my motion if you'd like, Dave. And we can just go with a sentiment supporting the concept and principles of EPR and encouraging the legislature to continue working down this policy development corridor or pathway.
Ruth, you second it. He wants to pull it. Are you good with that?
He can pull it, but I'm not going to second it.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to say,
Yeah, I'm fine.
okay,
And I'll second his new motion.
okay. Patty, I hope you got that.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm
I
fine
have
with it.
the nicest little tape recorder going that I listen to. I will put it word for word, guaranteed.
You're good.
A lot of paper.
We have a motion. We have a second. No other discussion I'm seeing. Patty, would you take the roll?
Okay, I need to understand, he did take off he pulled his motion originally.
Yes, he pulled his motion.
Now
Ruth
we're
allowed it.
voting for what he said second, which I'll get.
That's correct.
Yes.
And Ruth seconded what he said the second time, right?
No, Roland seconded.
Roland did, thank you, all right. So now I'm asking who is in favor of Matt's second statement? Dave,
In favor.
Marie Brilliant,
In favor?
and Ruth Lyons,
In favor.
Matt Nixon,
Yeah, in favor, I suppose.
Roland Tufts.
In favor.
Thank you, everyone's gonna be reading that, I'm sure. Be right, I promise.
Thank you,
Unanimous.
Patty. Appreciate it. Thank you, Yvette. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
21-11, consideration any appropriate action to request the planning department and recreation department to do a feasible study on a town boat launch. Hope you got water, Matt, because you're up.
Woo! Been talking quite a bit tonight. All right, so picture this. Maine's got 5,400 miles of coastline. Topsham is a historic and incredibly beautiful coastal town, as specifically identified and defined by the state of Maine Coastal Zone Management Program. We have a coastline that is underutilized. We also have one of the most beautiful resources in the state in our backyard in terms of Merry Meeting Bay that not very many people can get to. We also have a major construction project coming our way on a major thoroughfare that connects our town with Brunswick. And there's going to be traffic issues in the future. And I'm getting to a point here when everything gets shut down. One of our biggest issues in Topsham that I see, and this is basically what I used to do as coastal public access, is we don't have the ability to take advantage of our coastal environment or the bay the way that a lot of people I think would like to. Swimming, fishing, canoeing, smelting. I mean, I was driving across the river tonight on my way back to Topsham, and Brunswick's got their little smelting community over there right next to their ramp, and we've got nothing. So the list goes on. I think safety is a big one. I think someone had mentioned a while back that our fire department had referenced, and Dave, you can probably speak to this better than I can, but they had spoken about how they would really appreciate having a better site for boat rescues. Is that correct?
Well, they have no site in Topsham right now.
Right.
We have to go to Brunswick in order to launch to go anywhere, which is a loss of time.
And that's a roundabout route too. It's not super easy to get down to that ramp.
Yep, it's a loss of time. It's not only getting there, but if we were able to get something a little further up the river, depending where the incident was.
Yeah.
But we don't have access, correct?
So, thank you. They don't cost a ton, depending on what you do, both to build and to maintain. I mean, in most cases, you're talking talking about 12 concrete planks. The biggest cost, I think, for us would be dredge investigation. It's pretty shallow in the end road. And if that's what we're talking about things going, then that would be a major impediment to any type of site investigation or installation. So I guess tonight, I really just wanted to get permission from the board to ask our venerable town planner, Roderick Melanson, to look into grant opportunities for us to investigate basically the feasibility of a boat ramp in the town. And I know that there has been some work on this done in the past, but mostly it's been focused on the lower village. I was looking at that study yesterday. And we haven't really had a more comprehensive look, I think, at places where this might succeed. And that's essentially what I'm coming to you folks tonight for basically your sign off on. Those are my thoughts.
Dave, I have just a statement. I have thought that the river has been cleaned up for a long time now. And there is a video at Town Hall that talks about the 5 rivers meeting, and this river is on it. It's a very nice video, and it shows it, and it was produced well. I had thought for many, many, many years our river was never used and promoted like it should be. It is pretty. There's many beautiful sites. It's too bad Pajeb Scott went the way it did, because it's the most beautiful site in Topsham. But I am a big supporter of advertising and doing more recreation around our river. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Matt, I am 100% in favor of this, wherever it ends up, even if it's a little bit more challenging than simply going and using an easement. Because like the shallowness, right? Anywhere we can get on the river is far better than we are today.
Yeah.
We don't have access.
Dave,
Go ahead, Pam.
so thank you. Historically, when we built the Foreside Road facility, the road that goes down to Riverside was supposed to go straight to the river, and we were going to have boating area there. And that was back in the early 70s. It didn't happen because of the dredging issue, because farmers were able to go across to the island there. It was that shallow. The horses could walk through it and take the plows over to the field so that they could harvest. And that was the reason it was put on the table and not pursued. Approximately 14 years ago, the Brunswick Rowing Club came to us and wanted to get water access, and we worked with them and the sewer district for Pinewood access by the sewer pumping station. But then Brunswick Rowing Club was offered an opportunity in Brunswick, and that went away. And the sewer district has been, which gives us it's a little further up on the coast. The problem there was that the neighborhood wasn't exactly excited about having people drive through their neighborhood to get to the access point. Rod is the one who, I think, prepared the memo with the information as far as LWCF and coastal water access monies. So probably he wants to speak to that, but we're in total support of pursuing this and expanding and going forward, because it's something we've tried to do several times, but it just has had limits on it.
Pam, could you tell me about that farm thing again real quick? So
The
horses on the island.
Yeah, well, this has been in the town for 35 years, so I've heard a little bit of history. When the actual plans were made, and I actually researched, Rod and I spoke, and I tried to find the sketch plan from the actual building of the Foreside Road facility. It used to be the town's poor farm. But there was farmers who would go down the road that goes to Riverside currently, next to the American Legion by the shed there that goes down. Originally, there was a plan design that would go down straight to the river instead of turning and going to the left. And there was a plan to have access there. But the problem at the time was that it was too shallow, and you couldn't put a dock, you couldn't put a mooring. You couldn't put anything in there because of the water at the time. And back then in the 70s, you didn't want to be in the river. So it kind of got put on the back burner. But I've talked with people over the years who told stories of access, the Cow Island, or the island that Brunswick Topsham Land Trust owns, used to be a field that was hayed and maintained for the farm, and they would go down the road and cross over.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Rod, do you want to go any further with it?
No, these guys are having their discussion. They can chat it up.
So I am 100% in favor of this. And like I was saying, I don't have to only use our easements. If there's other ways, other places we can go find and work with individuals, property owners or whatever, we need to do something. And the stuff put forward here from the memo, the grant process couldn't be any better for something like this, to seek out and do this. And the one thing I do want to just say out loud, when we're talking boat ramp, we're talking a motor boat ramp, correct? Okay.
That's correct. Yes.
All right.
At least in my eyes, yes.
We're good with hand carry. We need motorboat boat ramps.
There will be an announcement coming out. Matt, you may be aware of this. I think in a couple months for the Shore and Harbor or Coastal, one of the two. Kathleen has already announced that to me, that will be coming out. So it should be actually a quicker turnaround than I previously thought on the grant announcement.
Excellent.
So
yeah, the LWCF would have had to been pre-approved by September 30th last year with a deadline of this May. So that sounds like that's the better way to go.
I'm pretty sure Brunswick's going to be applying to Shore and Harbor as well, Rod. So make sure you do well.
Ooh.
Any other comments from the board?
What he's saying, Rod, get on it.
I think I know somebody who has some experience on your board with these grants. I might have to call them up.
I'm not doing anything. Roland, you had something? You came.
No, we need a motion for this, or are we good?
You came.
Do we need a motion, Dave?
Yeah, I was just making sure everyone had a chance to chime, and I'm ready to go.
Yeah, one more thing would just be, it would obviously come back to the board to then apply for the grant, or I just need, for my own purposes, it was kind of a theoretical, wide, broad scope written down that could be honed down.
I think we kind of have to, yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's a check the box sort of thing, but I don't want to be changing any. We've got to at least have a look at it, right? We just had an hour discussion of making sure we have a look at something before we endorse it. We better darn well do it on the second to next item.
Understood.
So I will make a motion that we request that the town manager instruct the planning department and recreation department do a feasibility study on a town boat launch and to explore any grant possibilities for such. Do I have a second? Motioned and seconded. Patty, this is you.
Okay, David Douglas,
I'm in.
Marie Brilliant,
In favor.
thank you. Ruth Lyons,
Yes, in favor.
Matt Nixon,
In favor.
Roland Tufts,
In favor.
unanimously in favor, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Patty. 21-12, consideration and any appropriate action regarding directing town staff to work with the Topsham Housing Authority to prepare documents in connection with an affordable housing TIF to be presented at the annual town meeting or a special town meeting. Shattuck's up, I see, so that's who I'm going to.
Thank you, David. As I noted in my update, this project's been under consideration and discussion for over a year. I know we've spoken informally to your board a couple of times about this, and so far had positive feedback on an informal and preliminary basis. What's under consideration here is the development of 38 units of affordable housing under the aegis of the Topsham Housing Authority. Design would be similar in plan and appearance to that the Housing Authority did down with their Pleasant Street project, which I think that folks would agree has been a very attractive project and a very successful one. There's often concerns expressed anytime there's a fairly large-scale impact in an existing neighborhood. But I think the experience of the town since Pleasant Street's been built has been extremely positive. At any rate, this was something that Topsham Housing was hoping to bring forward last year, and indeed began speaking to us over a year ago. But of course, as we all know, we had some bumps in the road. But now that they've come back and are seeking the board's approval to direct staff to proceed with this, they are prepared to proceed with the hopes of getting a timeline that would get them to the spring town meeting. They're all ready to proceed. In fact, Housing Authority has already submitted to the town for its review and to Maine Housing for its review a draft of the application. So thank you for that. The town has consulted with our TIF council, and they are confident that they have the availability to support review and advice on this for us in time for a June meeting. You have more detail about step-by-step timeline that we'd be going through in my memorandum for you on this item. And John Hodge, the executive director of Topsham Housing, is here, as you see on your screen, available to answer your questions. And the key question for you, of course, is this something that you want to direct staff to proceed with? Do you believe it's feasible for development, for consideration at this year's town meeting?
Go ahead, Ruth.
I had a question. Did I read that, and probably goes to John Hodge, did I read where you're looking for a 50-50 TIF? You're looking for 50% TIF? Did
Yep,
I read that?
Yes, you did. That was correct. We basically are modeling what you did down at River Landing in the previous affordable housing TIF.
So break that down in millions. The town would get how many and you get how much?
Yeah, I well, this is all new to me as well, but my understanding how it works is the property will be assessed, and that annual tax assessed fee will be split between the developer and the town. My estimation of what the annual taxes would be, and this is just, I'm a novice, I'm not a tax assessor, but I looked at the project at Pleasant Woods and what we pay there. And so I just divided by how many units times by 38. So I am anticipating about $47,000 might be the assessment. Could be more, could be less. Again, I'm not an assessor. So if you look at that on an annual basis, it's about 24,000 for each. And that would be over a 15, 16-year period. So again, multiply that amount by the term.
And I would ratify that. We did discuss this in a staff review, and Justin came to back of the envelope, roughly the same calculation, that we're looking at a project valuation of about $2.7 million, a little bit less than overall than River Landing, but very close, and a tax revenue of somewhere in the 23 to 25,000 range per year to be divided 50-50.
One more question, John Hodge. Would the developing of this, would you use as many local people as you could?
Oh, we always do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we certainly hire in-state contractors and local, subcontractors to the extent we can. In fact, we're looking to write a grant to the Falmouth Bank of Boston, and one of the criteria to score points is to use locally sourced or regionally sourced material. So that's always been part of our effort.
John Hodge, I got a question, couple of them. I'm looking at the THA's meeting minutes, January 25th. You talked about Bank of Boston's affordable housing program. It states you use the affordable housing program grant to fill this, which is your $500,000 gap, right?
Yeah.
Use this to fill this and or a local housing TIF.
Yeah.
How's the and/or work?
Well,
you need.
Yeah, well, you're always trying to hedge all your bets because you don't want to leave any money on the table. So it's our preference to work with the town and do a TIF because we believe we could get a TIF approved, hopefully approved, if we can get on a warrant for town meeting in May, whereas the Affordable Housing Program grant, we would not know until December. So, so we certainly, if let's say you decide you don't want to put it on the warrant, you don't want to go forward, then I'm going to pursue the Affordable Housing Program grant. I won't have any other choice, but it's my preference to do it this way. And then again, as we look at the development budget, there may still be gaps that I'll have to look to that grant anyways to try to fill. But my concern also is I actually serve on the advisory council for that program for the Bank of Boston. And I know that this year is going to be a very challenging year because believe it or not, the bank's revenues are down because the banks, the Federal Loan Bank is a bank to banks. Their clients are other banks and they've been lending less money, so their profits are down. And the way this is set up, Congress created the Federal Home Loan Banks to serve banks, and they must use 10% of their net profit for affordable housing. So if their profits are down, the program funds are down. So it's going to be less money this year, more competitive is where I'm going with that.
38, the maximum houses in there in that piece of property. Is that maxed out?
We certainly could have put more, but again, we're always cognizant of the neighborhoods. We're always cognizant of resistance for housing in neighborhoods. And while the land could certainly place more on it, it was zoned for 38. That was the next phase of Topsham Crossing. It was part of a planned unit development. So it was really already approved for 38 units. So rather than rock the boat and, try to put 100 units in there and really, make everybody upset, we went with the 38 units. And I will say this, though, it's 12 acres. We're building those 38 units on about 6 acres. So in the future, if the town of Topsham decides they want to build more housing and they want to look at amending, zoning to allow it, I think you have some opportunities, 20, 30 years down the road, 50 years down the road. But we're not looking, the Topsham Housing Authority is just going to build those 38. That's what we're focused on.
Okay. Go ahead, Ruth.
My question, of course, I think we need affordable housing everywhere and Topsham in this whole area. Having said that, how much is that land assessed at now and how much taxes do we get? Do you know?
I did look at this. It's very minimal. Maybe John Shattuck can say, but it's very minimal. It
isn't that important, John. It's just a question I had.
I think it was like $300,000 maybe the assessed value. So what would the taxes be on that? I mean, it's just raw land.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, I don't have a current value, but I would surmise that it is pretty low at this point. Given the
Thank you.
I do want to make, actually, one last question. So back to the notes. So as you guys are working through this project, and both of this goes along with the comment I'm going to make here in a little bit. Let me make the comment first, and then I'll ask the question. My comment is, you were last before us September 5th, 2019. And you had talked about 40 housing units, and you wanted to come back and get with us about it. And granted, 40 at the time, whatever, that's not the important part. Understanding there was a COVID pandemic, but I do know this board continued to operate after only missing, I believe, one meeting. And not having the Topsham Housing Authority come forward and talk to us at any point. And now on February 18th, we're in this position where we were with a local developer, not a developer, a local business a little while ago that wanted to get something on town meeting. right at the last second. I don't like when that stuff happens. I'll be really honest. And that's a general statement. I want to have as much of an open process as we can getting this out. And I know I've read it and I've seen it in the paper, right? But this is another avenue, and I would have liked to have seen this prior to February 18th. And, we have known, conversation in the hallway. John said he had one-offs here or there. I had heard, I don't like this up against the window sort of stuff. That being said, one of the notes in your January 25th meeting says, due to yet more delays associated with the town's review of the final application, the meeting for final approval has been pushed to February 2nd. So what are these delays, yet more, Lang?
It was at the planning board. I think we had the preliminary sketch plan review in maybe August. It's been a while now. And then we had maybe September, October. Then we had a preliminary plan review. And again, I want to think that was in October, November. And we thought we were going to be meeting the next week, 2 weeks to have the final. That's where it started getting, delayed. And first of all, the delay was on our part too, because you're right, life has gone on under the pandemic. The issue we're facing was getting the work done to prepare an application for the planning board. So the civil engineers had difficulty getting work done because of issues with staff and just getting out to the site, whatever. So then they made the application. Then you get to the final, and that requires certain information. That went back and forth between the town. And it wasn't a criticism, there was questions. So it went back and forth, and then we think we would be on the agenda. And then I go on site and see the meeting was canceled. Then I, find out, I'd call Andrew, what's going on? I said, well, you haven't got the full application in. So I'd call the civil engineer, what's going on with the application? Well, there was a question about stormwater basin and high water table. So then we had to bring in someone to do another test pit. So it was just those kinds of things that went on and on that caused that delay. There was nothing critical, always frustration, because again, I report to a board and, oh, John, what happened to the meeting? Oh, well, we didn't get to the meeting. So it went on and on and on. So.
Okay. Yeah. So, but it does, I'll get to you in a second, Rod. Just general statement, and it's for everybody to hear. Yeah. You talked about August, September, October meetings happening. This TIF's been all along, right? So probably since September 5th, 2019, we've known there's going to be a need for this TIF. It would have been greatly appreciated to just an update before February 18th, and we're under the gun now. We're 2 months out until we set our town meeting, and there's a lot of work.
You're absolutely right, and that's my naivety in understanding how these things work. I've never done a TIF. I didn't understand the whole process that you'd have to go through to get a TIF approved. So, I'm learning, and I certainly will do better if we ever can do again to do a TIF. I hear you loud and clear.
Rod?
I was just going to clarify the planning board process. In this case, John was right that the technical issues were developed because it was a Site Location of Development Act review and approval by the town and under our delegated review authority. So that takes a bit more time than a typical smaller subdivision. This was a complex project that had a lot of back and forth with technical issues. So that was, just wanted to mention that. I will say it just came to us on Tuesday night with unanimous approval. All the I's were dotted and T's crossed, so it's good.
Good. My last, and I'm fine with moving forward, right? I'll vote in favor of that. I'm fine. Affordable housing means young families. And I just want to make, as I look at this chart, and I think, John, you might have put the chart together of what could be funded with the TIF revenues and such. I believe we've discovered now that school costs can be paid with this stuff. You start thinking 38 housing units, 1.5 kids per family, it's 57 kids added to the school. or whatever the age group, right from newborn, 18, however it breaks out. There's a potential 35 to 55 kids in school at any one time. And knowing that Williams Cone is popping at the seams at this second, big picture, we want the affordable housing, right? But big picture, we got to know all of this does have a trickle down, and I'm not saying stop it because of it, but it is something to consider. And the fact that we can use this to pay our portion of the schools as sheltered money is good. So that's more of a statement, not anything. It's just something to think of as we move forward here. It's probably a 20% increase potentially to Williams Cone, or somewhere in that range, 15 to 20%, if they're all young families. Are there any other questions, comments? John, do we think we can get this done and have adequate, all the hearings required, all of it?
Based on the timeline and the feedback we have received, feedback and productivity already from Topsham Housing, from Misha is confident that it can be reviewed and done in this time. And again, the manager's office has contacted our TIF council specifically with looking at the short timeline as being, asking for feasibility for that short timeline. And so far, everybody has been good. It says that that's doable, and we're confident staff can support this in the time allotted.
Will it get us to a possibility of a public hearing, not in conjunction with a public hearing for town meeting? Where we've,
based on the summary, and we haven't looked at it in detail yet, but they're kind of like CDBG, the current Misha procedure, as I understand it, does require a separate public hearing. But just as we've done in the past with CDBG items, we can do it on the same night. They just have to be separately noticed. So we've been kind of targeting the idea that this needs to be completed in the first half of April to align with your usual warrant hearing. And this again assumes that we'll be looking at a town meeting in mid-May, which may be optimistic this year, or at least chilly if we do it the same way as last year.
We're driving in it. We're moving on. We're going. Bank it. May. I will strongly put the pressure on staff and everyone involved to get this done, so we do not have two public hearings in the same night, that we introduce it to the public at the same moment we're going to vote on it. So go, go, go. I would like to see a public hearing minimum of a week before we look to move something.
Okay, that's good to know, because in the past we've looked at doing it on the same night for efficiency. But if you want that lag, we will make that the goal.
Well, I think Marie had your hand.
Yeah, and it's just a clerical on the timeline page on number 11. I think it was just a misspelling or something.
Yeah, it should be
on number
Misha.
11.
Yeah, should be MSHA.
Okay. Maine
State Housing Authority.
Okay.
In other words, we do not
That's right.
execute a credit enhancement agreement until Maine State Housing has approved the terms of the TIF.
Ruth, did I see your hand? Nope. Anyone else want to ask, state, do? Nope. All right. Sorry, I was looking at Marie's, her finger froze right in front of her. Marie, did you have something else? Every time you put your hand up, it's right there. I think it's freezing. All right, so I'm gonna, we'll speed this up. Let me get back to the page. Speed this up, it's 45 pages long. John, you guys had a meeting with the neighborhood at one time, didn't you, John Hodge?
Yeah, we did. It was in 2019, I believe, fall of 2019. We had about 50 residents there, and we certainly had, a really good discussion, and a lot of concerns were raised, primarily regarding Tedford Road, which I encouraged them to come to the Board of Selectmen because that was outside of our project. And I think that also contributed to the lack of questioning from the public during the planning board meetings because we had held that meeting prior.
Okay. All right. I'll make a motion to direct town staff to work with the Topsham Housing Authority to prepare documents in connection with an affordable housing TIF with a goal to be presented at the annual town meeting in May.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor? That's you, Patty. Sorry. By rules, I have to have Patty do it.
David Douglas,
I'm in favor.
Marie Brilliant,
In favor.
thank you. Ruth Lyons,
In favor.
Matt Nixon,
Favor, sorry for jumping the gun.
Roland Tuss,
In favor.
unanimously in favor, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Johns.
Thank you all very much.
Night, John.
Good night.
Night, Johns.
21-13, consideration and appropriate action to approve the updated rules of order and procedure for the Board of Municipal Officers. As an update for those at home that are excitedly tuning in, we had a workshop among our group 2 weeks ago or so, I would say. And we worked through, we have a document rules of order and procedure for our board, and we worked through to update some things that had changed over time. And in all of our packets, those are marked in red. And the only thing I will say, and it's something that I typed and I brought forward, it just struck me last night as I was reading this again. Communication number 37. Talks about receiving mail care of the town office building address or town of Topsham email, regardless whether the title is selectman or chairman, should be disseminated equally. And that got me thinking, and I think we all get, I think it would need to include our title or something. I think because we all get correspondence from the public about maybe their particular issue on their road, and they're not looking. We would still just disseminate that, right? That's just sharing it with everybody. I just want to make sure it's not about talking. I just want to make sure we're not, I guess we don't get private emails, right? I'm thinking someone comes forward with something sensitive to them, but all we're doing is disseminating it among us. It doesn't have to be, public. So I guess I've talked myself out of my concern.
I think sometimes we overthink it.
Yep, you're right. I should have just shut up and been happy.
No.
Matt, you were pondering something. I see it. Nope, he's not. All right.
I was going to say that I can see your point about sometimes there being very privileged information, or not privileged, but information that an individual may or may not want. Like they're seeking information about a subject that some people might.
Could be a hardship. Could be a hardship issue, right? That's, sharing it among us, but once it's sent to the email, it's already public, right? If someone FOIA it, it's already there. I was more thinking hardship stuff. But the second it hits the email, it doesn't matter. It's a public document. So
that's right.
I think the concern probably is gone. So anyone see any other changes? We good with it? Nope.
Good.
Sorry, I gotta find my page. I will make a motion that we approve the updated rules of order and procedure for the Board of Municipal Officers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Patty?
Yes, sir. David Douglas, how do you vote?
I'm in favor.
And Marie Brilliant,
In favor.
Ruth Lyons,
In favor.
Matt Nixon,
In favor.
and Roland Test.
Favor.
Unanimously in favor.
Thank you, Patty. I make a motion that we, oh, I want to say this earlier. We have on the, and I didn't say when we came in tonight. Earlier this evening at 6 p.m., we had an executive session that, and so now that was 21-14. We're going to now make a motion for 21-15. Enter into executive session pursuant to 36 MRSA subsection 841 and 1 MRSA subsection 4056F to deliberate over an abatement. Do I have a second to enter executive session? Motioned and seconded. All those
I
in
believe the
favor?
dog is a third, Dave.
It was going the whole time. It should have been a first. Unanimous. Thank you, folks. We will see you in March. And we will now log into a different link for the executive session.